Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome to my channel. So for those of you who are new, my name is Christiane, otherwise known here as IHeartAirbrush, and today we're going to be diving into a new device, a new portable handheld Pinky OU beauty airbrush system. Hopefully I am saying that right. Anyways, we're going to be diving into this system. So I'm going to show you an unboxing. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to achieve this full look using it. We're going to dive into different mediums, different brands of airbrush makeup, just to see how versatile this device is. And then we are also going to go into specs, pros and cons, and all that good stuff. So if you're interested in knowing a little bit about this device, then please keep on watching. All right, so we have a new portable, rechargeable handheld airbrush system to talk about today. Okay, so if you are familiar with my channel, you probably know that I've done a few different reviews and I use a couple of different portable rechargeable models. This is the first time I've ever actually found one and purchased one off of Amazon, and I actually purchased this off of the recommendation from a friend of mine who also has a channel here on YouTube. I will link her social media in the description box down below. I definitely recommend to go ahead and check out her channel. She's absolutely amazing. I love all of her creation. She's super inspiring and she does a lot of product reviews as well as a lot of tutorials and all that good stuff on her channel. So I definitely recommend to go ahead and check her out if you have a second. She's my girl. Make sure you show her some love on her latest video. Share the love. Anyway, so back to the device. So this device is actually called the Pinky OU. Hopefully I said that right. I'm not sure. You know, I'm a little skeptical about how to say the name because I'm just not sure how to say it, but hopefully I said it right. It is a beauty airbrush device that you can find on Amazon. It retails for about $69, I believe. I'll have everything linked in the description box below, or I'll put it somewhere on the screen. So before we dive into my overall thoughts of the device, pros, cons, and my findings in researching and playing with this whole system, I wanted to go ahead and show you a little bit of an unboxing to show you what comes in the kit, what to expect if you decide to go ahead and pick this up for yourself. And then I also want to go ahead and show you a little demo on how to achieve this airbrush look. Yes, this look was full face airbrush minus the highlighter. I did use a traditional highlighter today. You know, we got to keep it 100. But yeah, the rest of it is airbrush, from the foundation to the brows, shadow, all that good stuff. And for this look, I did dive into a few different brands and used a couple of different types of airbrush makeup just to go ahead and see how the system performs. So you're going to go ahead and see that in a little bit. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive into that and we'll regroup and talk about my final thoughts. All right, so this is the box that the system came in. As you can see on the top, it says Beauty Airbrush System, and on the side as well. When you open it up, you get a quick start guide. This is the model HB05, and it is in a couple different languages here. We have two languages that I'm not really sure where they're from, so I'm not going to say it specifically, but everything does translate into English in the quick start guide. Okay, so that is that. Now, once you lift up this foam insert here, you are left with all of the components of the actual system. So let's go ahead and start with the handheld compressor. So this is what the handheld compressor looks like. As you can see, it's a decent size. It's got that bright white hue to it with a chrome cap. On the front here, you see a button. That's the on and off button. And on the back, there's a flap protecting where you plug in the unit to the wall charger. And then just above the on and off button, there is a little indicator light. And then on the top, there is a threaded section where you can go ahead and attach or detach an airbrush. So yeah, pretty cool. Okay, the next thing that comes in the kit is the airbrush. Now this is a utility airbrush. As you can see, it has a very, very large cup. Of course, the body is full chrome with the tail being black. And what is interesting about this tail end is if you actually loosen it, it'll allow you to pull the lever back all the way. But as you start to tighten it, it'll start restricting how far back you can pull the lever. So as you can see, I just tightened it all the way and I can't pull my lever back at all. So it's pretty neat. I think this is really good, especially if you're like a beginner and you want to kind of control how far you're pulling back. That's a really nice feature to have. But yeah, next, of course, this is the attachment that allows it to be a dual action airbrush. As you can see, dual action, I can push down. And when you push down, that releases the airflow through the airbrush. And then when you pull back on the lever, that's what releases the makeup or the product or pigment. Okay, and then it also came with a wall adapter that looks like this. It's nice and sleek, all white. And then it also came with this dropper as well. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and attach the airbrush to the compressor body like so. Just going to go ahead and twist it on. Now I did get a tip from a fellow airbrush artist who has been using this system, and he told me to make sure to be careful when I screwed on the airbrush to the body to not strip the threads, because then, it'll be useless. We don't want it to be useless. So I was extra careful when I twisted on that last bit there to not over tighten. And there we have it, the system all together. Okay, so as you can see here, it's still dual action. So this is what it looks like all together. Everything looks real good and nice. If you click it on, you get the highest speed to start with. There's a little indicator light that tells you it's on. And then if you click it again, you get the lowest speed. So there's 2 speeds on this model. And then if you click it a third time, of course, it turns the unit off. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit about the charging so you can kind of know what to expect. So I'm just going to go ahead and lift the flap in the back to expose the charging port, and I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the charger. And as you can see, the indicator light starts blinking when the unit is charging, so it'll stay blinking until the unit is fully charged. They do recommend charging it for about an hour and 30 minutes, so I guess we're just gonna wait. All right, so it's been about an hour and a half now, and as you can see, the light is solid, which means that the unit is fully charged. So let's go ahead and just detach the charger. And close the little back flap there, and we are ready to go. So before we go, I did want to go ahead and point out that the top cap just kind of comes loose on the actual body like so, if you give it a little bit of a twist. So when you add on your airbrush or when you attempt to take it off, you will see that little opening there. So as you can see, I'm going to detach my airbrush here, but I am holding on to the top cap and the rest of the body to make sure it doesn't shift again. All right, so before we get into the tutorial, I want to go ahead and just kind of change some of the components of my airbrush just for, my own personal preference. So I'm not a big fan of this tail end here. So I do have a couple of other airbrushes that are the same model. So I have a bunch of spare parts. So I'm just going to go ahead and swap out the tail end for just a standard tail end. That way we have beautiful cohesion throughout my whole brush here. And then I am also going to go in on the dual action function. So as you can see, this starts off as a dual action. I personally don't need a dual action in my beauty application, so I'm just going to go ahead and swap that out. And if you're not familiar with airbrush anatomy, then you wouldn't know that the dual action piece is actually just this one piece right here. And it's this component right here that pops out of the top and on the bottom that's inside the funneling of this piece that causes it to be a dual action. So if you want to change your dual action to a single action, all you need is some tweezers like this, or you can actually purchase a tool that is made for it specifically. But I have these tweezers, so why would I purchase an extra tool? So you just want to stick the prongs into the opening of where this little screw is, and then just twist it off. As you can see, it's really quick to go ahead and twist off. So you just want to go ahead and lift out this piece right here. As you can see, it's a fairly long piece, so you just want to go ahead and lift that out. And then if you look inside, there is also a spring in there. So you just want to go ahead and just pop the spring out as well. And it's so tiny. So you just want to make sure that you're careful so you don't lose any of the pieces. But yeah, that's essentially all it takes to go ahead and switch your dual action to a single action. All right, so I went ahead and attached it back to my airbrush, and now I'm going to attach the airbrush back to the compressor body so we can get on with the makeup. Okay, so as I near the end of the final twist to get my airbrush to be in there, I'm being very careful because I do not want to strip the thread. So if you pick up this unit, be extra careful, okay? And we are all ready to go. We got our single action ready for some beauty application. All right, so we are ready to go with our airbrush nice and clean. And I'm going to dive into a few different brands in a couple different formulas. So we have the Dynair brand, which is a water base, the Ket brand, which is a thicker water base, and then the Temp 2 SB, which is a lightweight silicone base. So I'm going to start this routine using the Dynair Neutralizing Camouflage line. It is a water-based product. And I'm just going to go ahead and drop a couple drops into this cup here. Make sure when you're dropping it into the cup that you hit it directly over the needle. Otherwise, you will waste product because the nature of this cup. It's a large cup, okay? So I am going to go ahead and set it down to the low setting. So I hit the button twice there. And as you can see, it sprays out nice and smooth. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and conceal my blemishes like so, just to kind of show you how fine the brush is spraying at the PSI that it's set at here. It looks like everything is spraying really nicely, evenly, not getting any spurts, which is real nice. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and finish off this portion and we'll move on to the next. All right, so now that I'm done concealing, I did go ahead and flush out the cup, and I just want to make note to go ahead and make sure to wipe down the cup with a tissue like so, because you don't want any leftover water or cleaner residue in there mixing in with the makeup. So next we're going to go into the Ket line, which is a thicker water-based formula. I am going to click the compressor on one time because we want the highest speed setting. And as you can see, it sprayed out beautifully. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue on and contour the face. I just want you to go ahead and really see how it applies in this system. As you can see so far, hopefully you can see that the color is being laid down very fine and beautiful. I am staying light on the lever and all that good stuff. So there is, of course, technique involved. But as far as the system goes, it did go ahead and spray out even this thicker water-based formula very nicely. And we're all out. So next I'm going on to foundation, and I'm going to stay with the Ket line because I do want you to see how it works in covering in a whole complexion. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to apply it the way I normally apply it, just to get my skin to be nice and even. All right, so that is about it for the Ket. So as you can see, I did clean out my cup here. And to go into silicone based with the Temp 2 lining, I'm going to go ahead and switch airbrushes. You definitely don't want to use the same airbrush that you use water based into silicone based or silicone based into water based. Things are just not going to spray smoothly if you do that. So because I'm going into using the Temp 2 silicone based formula, I am going to use my Temp 2 airbrush. This is the SP40. I'm just going to go ahead and attach it to the system like so, being very careful when I twist in that last bit because, like I said before, you don't want to strip the threading. Everything's lined up nicely. All right, and we're ready to go. So I am going to apply the blush from the Temp 2 Perfect Canvas line, just adding a couple of drops in there. I'm definitely more comfortable with this size cup as opposed to the other one, so no worries there. Nice and easy, stress-free. I'm just going to go ahead and test this out on a tissue. Now, I am really nervous because I'm not sure how it's going to spray the silicone base out, so hopefully it does spray out nicely and not patchy. We're on speed setting 1. This is the highest speed setting, and it looks like it's getting it out smooth. Thank you, Lord. I love it. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply my blush like so. I know you can see how happy I am. Because I definitely do prefer the standard airbrush over the Temp 2 Air. So like this is so exciting. I'm so happy. Obviously I tested out my spray too much and I wasted a lot of products. I'm just going to add a little bit more in there so I can finish off my blush. All right, so now that I'm all blessed and flushed, happy as hell, I'm just gonna go ahead and detach the Temp 2 airbrush after I cleaned it out, of course, because I am gonna go back into a water-based formula for my eyeshadow and the rest of my face. So putting back the airbrush that came with the system, because we're gonna stick with this one, okay. Of course, making sure to be careful again. I'm gonna go in with some Diner for the eyes. So here I'm just applying a shade to the transition crease area. As you can see, there is no issues with blending now that you're nice up close and personal. Everything is spraying on nice and smooth, real good. I am going to go in again with another shimmer shade, and I put it on the lowest setting when I'm doing the eyes. So the lowest setting, even though it's a higher PSI than that of the Handheld Compressor, it's still pretty gentle on the eyes. So I'm not having any issues. I'm not having any discomfort when I'm spraying the eye area, which is a huge plus, huge. So as you can see, it's spraying out this opalescent shade very beautifully and nice. There's no lag or delay or skipping, which is always good. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish off the eyes. Now that the eyeliner is complete, I'm going to go ahead and quickly fill in my brows. And as you can see, a beautiful smooth application using a bunch of different formulas, different mediums, and all that good stuff. Alright, so now that you've seen the unboxing, you know about everything that comes into the kit, you know about all the specs, and now that you've also seen how to achieve this look and how the performance was using both silicone, water-based, and thicker water-based formulas, I figured now it's time to go ahead and give you the specs. Now, I did do quite a bit of research on this device because I have used a few other devices that were portable handheld models already from specific airbrush brands. So I wanted to make sure to do my homework, do my research to go ahead and really relay to you enough information for you to decide if this is something that you want to pick up for yourself. So there were a lot of claims with this airbrush machine. Now I do have notes down here, so that's why I'm looking down. But there are a lot of claims with this airbrush machine. One, you get the massive cup on the airbrush that comes with the airbrush that comes with the system. And then of course we know that there are 2 speeds. We know all about the charging time and everything, so that brings us to the run test. Now Amazon claims that this device it takes about an hour and 30 minutes to charge, and it will give you 45 minutes of run time. So of course I had to test that out for myself just to see if it was accurate. And with there being 2 speeds, I was kind of curious to see if that changed the run time at all, if you're using it on the highest speed for the whole 45 minutes, or if you're using it on the lower speed, it's going to increase the time that you can use it running and all that good stuff. So in my tests, I charged it for about an hour and 30 minutes, and I ran it on high, and the run time for that came to about 31 minutes and 20 seconds. Now in my second test, I ran it, I charged it for about an hour and 30 minutes, and then I ran it on the low speed, and that lasted about 49 minutes and 33 seconds. Then I figured, well, what if I charged it longer? Am I going to get more time, like more usable time out of it? So I charged it overnight, and then I ran it on the low setting again, and it lasted for about 49 minutes and 35 seconds. So charging it overnight is not going to give you more run time. And so I did that both on the low setting. I figured that the same crosses over to the high setting because there's only a difference in a few seconds between the 2 times charging it. If you're charging it overnight, if you're charging it for an hour and a half, it's probably going to be the same, you know, if you're running it on high. So on high, you don't quite get the 45 minutes. You do get about 30 minutes of use. Continuous use anyways. And also a point to make note of is the air will shut off after 5 minutes of continuous use. So in that 30 minutes on high, you're going to get at least 6 times the brush shutting off. Now when it starts to peter out and the battery starts to die, you'll see like a flashing light before it dies completely. So far I think that's been consistent. I think there were only 1 or 2 times where it actually just cut off and died on me when it was on high, but other times I did notice the flashing light. Maybe I just didn't notice it before or whatever it was, so I'll give it the benefit of the doubt in that respect. But yeah, you should see the flashing light. Another spec that I wanted to touch on is the PSI. So the PSI online, they say that it's about 15 PSI. Now I do have a pressure gauge, and I did go ahead and check the PSI on my pressure gauge, and I got for the highest speed about 16 PSI, and for the lowest speed I got about 13. So that kind of ballparks it for you. About 15 is about right for the high speed. The low speed is of course slightly less. It's not as soft as like a 5.5 psi. So if you're used to systems that have a 5.5 psi, which is most systems that run water-based airbrush makeup, it's not going to be as gentle as that. But still, the speeds that it runs off of is pretty gentle to go ahead and do the full face. As you saw, I didn't have any trouble with doing the delicate eye area or anything like that with this device. So now let's go into the pros and cons. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read down the list because this is a lot here. And I'll also put it on the screen there for you. So the pros of this device is that it is portable, of course. It is rechargeable. There is an indicator light for charging. That is a big must for me personally. I don't know about you, but I need to know that the device is charging. And also the fact that the indicator light not only works to show that it's charging, but it also blinks while it's charging and then it stops blinking while it's fully charged. So that's like really nice to know. Another pro of this device is that the airbrush on top is interchangeable. That is one thing that was not present on a device that I reviewed last year. And I really like that feature because if there happens to be anything to go wrong with the airbrush, or say I'm in the middle of doing some kind of work with my airbrush and the brush, something happens to my brush, I can just go ahead and swap it out as opposed to having to tinker with it at all. So I really like that feature a lot of this device. Another positive aspect is that instead of a single speed, you get 2 speeds on this device, which I really, really like. I would prefer, and my friend touched on this in her video too, if when you clicked it on, it started at low and then you clicked it again and it went to high. Because right now it starts off at high when you click it the first time, and then when you click it the second time, then it's low and then off. So I don't know. I don't know if there was a reasoning behind having it backwards like that or having it that way. I think I just would have preferred to go from the low to high setting. So still, the fact that it's 2 speeds is a pro. It's a pro, okay? It's relatively lightweight. That's another really good point to make. It's not too heavy. I want to say it feels about the same as the Temp 2 Air device. Like, it doesn't feel like heavier than that. I think the airbrush kind of attributes, because it's like a more hobby style airbrush, it kind of attributes to the weight of it, but the actual compressor itself is fairly light. Another pro is that it can be used with multiple mediums, as you saw before, and I have been testing this out. I have no problem spraying out water-based or silicone-based products with this compressor. Now, I do recommend, of course, that if you're going to use water-based, to use a airbrush that is specifically meant for water-based, and then if you decide to transition to silicone-based, to switch off the airbrush, which is another reason why this is such a pro, to switch off the airbrush and use an airbrush that's dedicated for silicone base. You'll run into a lot less problems, no matter how good you clean it. And this was a tip that I actually got from a really amazing airbrush artist. No matter how much you clean in between, water-based will not spray as smooth, especially the thicker water-based formulas will not spray as smooth coming through an airbrush that was previously used for silicone-based makeup. So just a thought if you're deciding to go ahead and use both mediums with this one device, or in general, of course. All right, so that about covers the pros. As you can see, there are a lot of pros to this device, so let's talk about the cons, okay? Now, these cons are not necessarily something that is horrible or bad about the product. This is more like my personal preference than what is suited to my needs as an airbrush artist. So some of these things you might not see as a problem or anything like that. So just keep an open mind as I go ahead and go through this list. So one of the cons is that the system in itself is a little bit bulky. It's a little bit bulky in the fact that, like, when I hold on to the airbrush, because there's such a large space here, when I hold on to the airbrush, you have so much that's kind of hanging off. And while I'm doing my routine, I kind of have to be very, like, aware, because this is pretty bulky on the bottom, okay? Like, it's not a horrible thing. It's like maybe like a small con. Like, it's not a big deal. It's like a tiny little thing. Like, you know, maybe we could just have this a little bit more compact, you know? I don't know if that's gonna affect like how it works or like how you're able to use it. But if you could put it in a small body and have it still work the same, I think that'd be real nice, okay? So the next con, that I'm going to go ahead and go over is the actual airbrush that the system comes with. So these airbrushes are quite inexpensive. I do have the same style airbrushes, which is why I had these spare parts for another system. So back on my channel, I did a review of the Vogue Air system. The Vogue Air system is another really affordable system, and it came with an airbrush just like this. And these airbrushes, for me personally, I feel like these are more for like hobby stuff, or maybe even body painting. As far as like beauty application, I just don't find these kind of airbrushes necessary. One, the cup is way too big, and if you look on the inside of the cup, the little middle portion in there, like, you have to add like more than 2 drops to go ahead and get the full flow with it, because the little opening is just slightly higher than the base of this cup. So if you don't fill it with enough fluid, you're not going to actually get the product coming out smoothly, and you can get a lot of air patches in the flow or distribution of the makeup, which is a little bit frustrating, but you know, I mean, what do you expect? It's a big old cup. So that's another reason why it's really good that you can switch out the airbrush, because I think definitely going forward I will be switching out this airbrush. Now this airbrush, it functions fine. It's not horrible. Is it the best for beauty application? My personal opinion, no, not really. Okay, I have other airbrushes that I feel like perform a little bit better than this one, but for a budget option, it's not bad. It's not bad to go ahead and start with it. You can definitely work with it. It's just that makeup in the cup thing. You might go through a lot more product, you know, if you have to put multiple drops in there. That's all I'm saying, okay? And then, of course, the functionality of the brush, it comes as a dual, and I think most people doing beauty application use single. I mean, I know I use single in beauty application. I don't really feel the need to use a dual action when I'm doing beauty makeup. So the fact that it was dual action, because I did switch it over to single if you watch the beginning of this video, the fact that it was a dual action didn't really serve a purpose to me, or I don't really have a need for that, so I swapped it out really easy. So I mean, overall, those are pretty much the cons with the brush. I mean, is it an okay brush? Yeah, it's decent. It's not bad. But for me and where I'm at with my airbrush application, I just feel like there are better brushes out on the market that I will be using with this system. So another con, which is a big deal to me. Now the last two cons were not that big of a deal, okay? Those are like preference things, all right? This one is actually a big deal to me. It's the fact that you can't use it while it's charging. So sometimes I do looks, or I'm working on certain projects where it takes a lot of time. And the fact that you can only run this model for about 30 minutes on high, 45 to 50 minutes on low, that's not enough time sometimes to go ahead and get through a whole routine, especially if I'm filming. So the fact that I can't just plug it in and keep on trucking is kind of a bummer, because I need something, like, I don't want to have to invest in a bunch of these, all right? Let's just be real. I don't want to have a bunch of devices. I want to have one that I can do all this stuff with, because I don't like to have a lot of clutter. I don't like to have a lot of extra stuff. So having a brush that is portable and battery operated with the ability to be used on the charger is a very important thing that I feel like having. And that's one of the reasons why I was kind of hesitant to pick up this model, because you couldn't use it while it was charging. I was hoping that it wasn't true, but you literally cannot use it while it's charging. If you plug it in, this button doesn't do anything. It won't turn on at all. There's absolutely no using this while it's charging. So I would say that that is a con, especially for me, where I'm at. But for most people, I know it's not a big deal. I mean, most people can get what they need to get done within that frame of time of running. Some people are doing a lot less than a full face of airbrush makeup, so they can get multiple uses out of it. So it's not a big deal for them. But for me, I would prefer to be able to use it while it's charging. That's all I'm saying, okay? All right, so with that said, this brings me to the last and final con, and that is the build of the top portion up here. So this little piece, like, this is a hard plastic, okay? This is sturdy. This little piece up here is also a hard plastic, but it's coated in this like chrome paint, okay? And like this little spot here with the little threads and stuff that attaches to your airbrush is very sensitive. So I actually got a warning from the airbrush makeup guru about not over tightening this, because once the threads are done in here, the unit is pretty much useless. I mean, you can't attach a brush to it. So you definitely have to be careful when screwing this on, because it is plastic. And then another thing that kind of adds on to the fact that this is like plastic is that it twists really easily and it kind of comes apart. So you probably saw that in my unboxing portion, but that this whole piece like completely comes off. And it's just, I mean, it's plastic, bro. Like, it's not even like this kind of plastic is real thick, real nice. This kind of plastic, it leaves a little to be desired. So you just have to make sure that if you do purchase this, that you're gonna be extra careful, of course, when you're attaching or detaching your airbrush to it, to make sure that you don't jack up the threads. But for me, of course, I had to list it in cons because I felt like for the price that you pay, I don't know, they could have been uniform plastic throughout the whole thing. But then again, you are getting a really good deal for this whole system. You know, only paying $70 for it, and it's portable and rechargeable. So I don't know, you be the judge. You be the judge if you think it's worth it or not. It's perfectly fine, the build. I haven't had any problems with the threading, but like I said, I am cognizant of when I attach the airbrush to it to not screw it in too tight, okay? So just bear that in mind and make sure that you're careful. All right, so now that you have my listed pros and cons, I will let you be the final judge as to what you think about this system. Do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's not? I personally am happy to have it. I will not be returning this, okay? I definitely have found multiple uses for it, so I will be holding on. Will I invest in another one? Probably not, just because like I don't really need or have a necessity for another one right now. But I feel like if I did have a need to have a spare one on the charger to be able to swap out, yeah, I probably would pick another one up. I mean, the price point is pretty decent for what you get. Alright, so that about wraps it up for this video. I hope you found this video informative and entertaining. Of course, if you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. It helps me out a ton. And as always, remember to subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And if you are subscribed, or if you choose to subscribe today, don't forget to hit that little bell icon right next to the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. That way you get the quickest updates anytime I upload a video. Alright, I want to thank you so much for joining in with me and hearing my thoughts on this little device here. Don't forget to check out my friend's video on this device as well. It's always good to get multiple opinions because of course things differ from person to person based on preference. So definitely go ahead and check out her video. Once again, I will have it linked in the description box below. Alright loves, thank you so much again for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Bye!